Everyone. What did you do? That's pretty good. That's new, isn't it? You've never used it here before. We want it every Sunday. Good, all right. I just returned, in fact, last evening I arrived from a Religious Science International board meeting and conference that is continuing on. And I want you to know it's a wonderful experience. It's wonderful to see the expansion and the educational program that takes place. But our hotel was right in Disneyland Village, and children all over, and families, which is, to me, such a wonderful, healthy experience that was really taking place, to see the families together and expressing themselves in that particular manner. And of course, if you're having breakfast, you had Mickey Mouse that would come over to you, and Mrs. Minnie, and everybody else, and all the characters. And it was really great. And you know, it's wonderful to see. In fact, one sat down at my table and put his arm around me. Maybe it was her arm around me, I don't know. But anyhow, it was the wonderful experience, because no matter what you had on your back of difficulty, no matter what challenge you had, you forgot it. You really forgot it, and there was a release that took place, a wonderful release, and a wonderful expression that came into being. It was almost like the little child in every single one of us that is free for that moment. The unfortunate part is when we leave, we say, okay, now where's my problem? You know? And that's what we need to learn. What we need to learn is to really come in a consciousness, come into a consciousness of really recognizing that I believe that the Spirit created us to enjoy this thing called life. I don't believe that you were created to come here to suffer. Suffer we do. That's a personal job. And we're good at that. From 1 to 10, most of us are 10s. And a couple of ones. But anyway, what I'm referring to is the consciousness of really knowing that we are really responsible for our own experiences. And we do have at times unforeseen challenges that come into our lives. And they do happen. But you know, when they do come into our lives, we've got the stuff inside of us to handle it. Because in every single one of us are resources that we need to draw upon, and resources that we need to lean upon. And if they're unused, then we lose them. But they're there for every single man and every single woman to use it in their own personal life. When we were flying from Orlando yesterday afternoon, we flew a great deal over the Gulf Stream. Well, turbulence, and we had turbulence. That little aircraft was really going, and this particular one, it was a 757, those small jobs, crowded in, you know. But, you know, have you ever noticed just when your food comes, and the coffee and the tray, and everything's going like this, seatbelts on and everything? And so the pilot told us that everything would work out, and it must have been about 10 minutes later, he told us that our altitude at this point was 39,000 feet. And we were looking down at all of the turbulence. That's when I wanted to get up and tell everybody on board, let's sing Nearer My God to Thee. We couldn't get any closer, you know? But the point is that when turbulence comes into our lives unexpectedly, that's where the confidence within us has to come out. That's where the Spirit, the strength of the Spirit, has to express itself. And that's the time when you, as well as myself, have to raise our altitude by changing our attitude. And when we come into that consciousness, that elevation of consciousness, the turbulence was there. We could see the formation of the clouds, and they were not smooth. They were rough. You could see them. Some looked like mountains in that consciousness. So when we really recognize here today that we were born to create, and many times we allow appearances to govern our creation of experiences. But there's the esteem within us. The esteem within us is that when we have this realization that we are connected, we have a divine pipeline, so to speak, a divine pipeline with its creativity. But we forget that connectedness. And we, again, forget the childishness. The child that I'm referring to is not being childish. But if we could hear today, if every man and every woman here today could really have the curiosity, the adventure, just like a child says, are we there yet? Remember those words? Are we there yet? We just started out. We just left 2 blocks. Are we there yet? And we need to say to ourselves in our prayer treatment, am I closer to my demonstration? Am I closer to that healing? Am I closer to the change of consciousness? Am I using the resources that are within me to bring through me that strength? Are we there yet? Meaning, if a child says, are we there yet? That means there's a destination. What is our destination? And if we have a destination of creativity, a destination of the ongoingness of life, a destination of what we want to demonstrate, then we know. We could say to ourselves, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. And we know that that destination is right there, manifesting. Otherwise, we remain just as we are. And when we come into that realization of consciousness, that we are seekers that constantly unfold, seekers that open up new doors of life itself. We are at the threshold, right, all of us. We are at the threshold of new experiences, but those experiences could be aggravating, irritating, and upsetting, or those experiences could be rewarding, enriching, and fulfilling. It's how we look at it. Now, I'm not saying life is easy, and it makes demands upon us, but demands not to retreat, demands to stand up, and demands to recognize that the armor of God is within us and around us. And that's the consciousness. We will have people in our experiences that many times we look at them and that we find no joy in what we're doing, no joy with them. But that should never kill the spirit of creativity that lies within us. And it's that spirit that we want to bring out. It's that consciousness. And so our religion that we teach here is a consciousness of really changing ourselves, changing our outlook, and coming into that realization that if we could believe that there's a power within us that never fails us, if we could believe that there's an intelligence within us that always comes through, and if we could believe that there's a spirit within us that leads us always into the light and directs us into the fulfillment of life itself. Now that's what we must believe. But so many times, one word comes into our experience. And I'll tell you what that one word is. Discouragement. We get discouraged. And if we allow discouragement to come in, this is what corrodes us. And this is what really arrests us. Because discouragement is a damper. It dampens us. It darkens our awareness. It blocks our view. And we take counsel with our discouragement. And yet, there is something within us that never gives up on us. Now that's what I want us to tap. That's what I want us to express. That's what we need to experience. That's something in every single one of us here that no matter how we've lived before, no matter how we thought before, no matter what took place in our consciousness, that's the spirit that says to you, and to myself, stand up, and be counted, regardless of what we have to face. Because whatever we're facing can only make us stronger, not weaker. And whatever we need to handle with a spirit of adventure. We are constantly discovering more about ourselves as we uncover not our weaknesses, not our failures, not our setbacks. We've all had those. But when we discover the assets that lie within all of us, it is those assets that I'm speaking of. And this is the assets that many men and women who were achievers in life, and we are all achievers, but many times we lose sight of the direction and we fail to demonstrate the reality of truth itself. Facts are everywhere present. Facts change, but reality never changes. I love the words that are in the scriptures. I'm with you always. I'm with you always. And I reminded someone in the foyer a couple of weeks ago, and they said, yeah, do you know what's with me always? Pain. Pain's with me always. What kind of pain, I said? Mental pain, emotional pain. And when are you going to release it? Well, it's hard. That may be hard to that person. But when we come into the realization that pain paralyzes them, that's what it really does. So we look at our life and let it become an adventure here today. Let this week become the week that transforms your life. But remember, it's not going to transform anything out there. The transformation has to take place within our own consciousness. And this is the part that sets us free into a whole new awareness of life. A young lady by the name, going back when she was young, Mother Teresa, a young lady, was a nun in Calcutta, and was a teacher, and had a very secure position. She had security for the rest of her life, and there wouldn't be anything that she would need in her life. But every now and then when she looked out the window of the convent, she saw lepers, and she saw people who were fearful, people who were unloved. And she made a decision within herself that I'm going to leave this space of security. I'm going to leave the protection that I have here. And with permission, and where she had to really work with to get that permission, she said, I want to go out and help these people. This is the calling I really have. This is what I really want to do in life. And with much resistance from the convent and the order, they finally granted it, because there's a calling. There's a calling in every single one of us. Let me repeat that. There's a calling in every single one of us. The only thing, sometimes we pick up the wrong signal. But there's a calling. There's a calling when we can really be still. You could say to yourself, he said, there's a calling. What's calling me? What's causing this to come through me? What's lifting me? There's a calling in every single one of us. And it never leads us to a dead end. It always leads us to a new vista. And finally she went out. And as you know, her life, she became very, very successful. Because she followed the instinct. She followed that self-esteem. She followed with confidence. And she followed with a new vision and a new faith. Now, she went out into uncharted territories. So do you. We all do. Uncharted territories around all of us. But our thoughts and our feelings, our beliefs and our actions chart. And it's our responsibility when we realize, what are my values? What are my concepts in life? Where do I want to go? If I have an uncharted territory in my consciousness, then it's up to me to direct the course of my life. Of course it is. And even though we may have an agenda of people in our experience who block us, and these are obstacles in our life. But again, if we take that determination and our confidence, we go ahead. Just as Mother Teresa, the convent was not necessarily interested in letting her go. Going out there into an uncharted territory, but with a vision, and with a faith, and with confidence, and with trust, and a connectionness, and a knowingness, every step of the way is being led under divine guidance and divine order. God didn't create us to face a crash course. God created us with eyes that are open and a faith and trust. For God gave us a spirit, not a fear, but a faith and trust. Recently, this woman who's reached maturity in her life was at the United Nations not too long ago, before she expired. And after the United Nations, she made arrangements to be taken up to upstate New York to one of our prisons. And while she visited the prison, she found out that there were 4 people there that had AIDS. Christmas Eve, this bold, courageous, uncharted person, this individual with a vision and a consciousness, walks into New York City, into Mayor Cox's office. And he's so impressed that she came to visit him. She says, I want 5 minutes of your time. And he says, fine. He says, he was just taken back. She says, I want you to call the governor for me. He says, the governor? She says, yes, please call the governor for me. With that, he got the governor, and he hands her the phone. And she says to the governor, sprang to the governor, she was at Sing Sing, and there were 4 people there with AIDS. The governor says, you know, we have more than 4 people. We have 43 people. She says, I'll start with 4. She said, here's what I want you to do. This is to the governor of New York. She said, I found a piece of property. I want you to buy it for us, and I want to take care of these people. And the governor, you know what he said? Okay. Now, you would think, well, what does she need something else in her life? She already got the Nobel Prize. She already achieved what she... But then what? The calling. The calling. The calling to be useful. The calling to grow. The calling to make life the call to write a new chapter. The calling to never put a period on this thing called life. Never. The calling to always move ahead and move on into life itself. Never looking back and say, this is what I used to be. And with that, when she hung up the phone, she turns to the mayor. I've got the building. I know where it is. I'm going to need permits. I want to open Wednesday. No, you notice? Wednesday, the day after Christmas, I want to open. And God said to her, you got it under one condition. You don't ask me to scrub the floors. So when you come into the realization, here is a person that she's had her setbacks, she's had her challenges. Of course she did. But when you come into the realization of life itself, that we look at it today, I want to challenge all of us here today. I want to challenge you. I don't know what's on your plate. I don't know what's on your plate. It may be pleasant, and it may be unpleasant, and it may be a mixture of everything. But you have the responsibility of sorting out. You have the responsibility of making a choice in life. And so that choice is when we look for the highest, the greatest, and the finest within us. If you were offered a marvelous piece of furniture, and you look at it and say, this is yours. And then you say, well, I'd take it, but it's got a little flaw right here. And some of us, that's all we see. We zero right into the flaw. And life will have flaws. It will have flaws. Roses have thorns, but you don't stop buying them. You don't stop growing them. So you come into that consciousness that whatever the flaw may be, look at the greatness of life itself. 2 young men in 1976, one 21 and one 26. Didn't have very much money, but sure had an idea, a great idea. They sold their van for $1,300 and 2 calculators. That's all they had. And in a garage, they started to work on computers. Very few people were receptive to the computer idea. But they believed in it. They lived it. They talked it. They walked it. They felt it. How much do you feel when you say at the end of your prayer treatment, and so it is? How much do you live it? Or do you put it on a shelf and say, I'll come back tomorrow, God, and see how that's working? These 2 men lived it, breathed it, and carried it with it themselves, and talked it until they went everywhere to get help. The retailer said, no way, no way. The bank said, no more. And no doors opened up. And finally, the doors opened up. 6 years later, these 2 men who started the Apple computer business sold 650,000 computers because they lived it. They became it. And when we become active in that faith, when we become moving into a consciousness of realization, then life begins to express itself into a whole new dimension of life. You heard this morning over here a new sound. Did you ever hear it before? No, a new sound was introduced. Then that's what we need to do. We hear the same thoughts, the same feelings, the same ideas, the same image. What we need to do is hear a new sound, hear a new energy, hear a new experience. And the moment we heard it, we said, what's that? What's that? Same thing has to take place within us. Something within us that we must pray as we've never prayed before. Think and reach an altitude as we've never reached before. Touch as we've never touched before. Experience life as we've never experienced before. What I'm asking you to do when you leave here today, that go out into that world, but not into a battlefield, because many times the battlefield is within us. There's nothing to battle. There's nothing to battle. When we come into the realization that we are equipped here today with the faith and with the trust and with the consciousness of raising that altitude. When I mentioned about the plane at 39,000 feet at first service, one of our members is a pilot. And he says, we do go 39,000. He says, not too often. He says, but I want you to know, Dr. Frank, when we go 39,000, we don't leave you there. Now, there are times when you have to come down. You've got to come down. You've got to touch base. You've got to touch base. But you also have to realize that you lift your consciousness into a whole new dimension of life itself. So today, let's get so turned on with life. Let's feel the confidence. Let's feel the trust. Let's feel the essence of that spirit. And let's know that we have within our consciousness the values. There's a core within us. There's a core within you. There's a core within me. And that core, the core within each and every one of us, either that core is positive or negative. Either that core is daring or it retreats. Either that core is open or it's closed. But there's a core in every single one of us. And we project whatever is at the very core of our feelings in here, in our consciousness. And as we begin to recognize this, that I'm made up of my own thoughts, I'm made up of my own visions, I'm made up of my own beliefs, and my world is here within me. But remember, we can change it at any time. Anytime. Don't you dare say it's easier said than done, Dr. Frank. Now, it'll either kill you or it'll make your life a wonderful, joyful experience. So let's today recognize what is at the core of my, what are my values? What are my concepts? What is my perspective? It's not out there. It's never out there. The teacher said the kingdom is within. Now that kingdom is a kingdom of hell on earth, or it's a kingdom of heaven on earth. The kingdom is within. And so you have within yourself here today the choice of opening up a whole new vista of life. So whatever is on your plate, you don't have to eat it. Isn't that wonderful? You don't have to eat it. You could pass it up. Pass it up. You know, when you go to a cafeteria, you try to put everything on your plate. Now come into that consciousness here today. I will select what I want on my plate. And don't say, the choice is not always mine. It is. It is. Because it's your choice. It's not what happens to you. It's how you react what happens to you. As I was sitting on the plane, sitting next to me was a young man who's a doctor, and his wife was at the next seat with a little 2-year-old daughter further on. And I was trying to jot some notes down, and he says, that looks pretty good. I said, you like it? And I pushed it over to him. I thought, I'll make you a copy. And he says, what are you? And I told him what I do. He says, where? So he may be here this morning for all I know. Anyhow, but you know, look at how we touch the lives. But he said, in the conversation, he was talking about, he started his practice, he's struggling, working with it, and wants to grow, and his wife is really doing the supporting. The practice hasn't brought enough. I said, what a wonderful, I said, don't let that dampen your spirit. It's that teamwork, it's that consciousness. And we talked for about 45 minutes. I felt like passing the plate at that point. Because the woman at the next aisle started to listen. And the people on the other side of the listen. And before you know it, I had a little group around me. A little group around me. Now, that's the projection of consciousness that moves. And the woman that sat at the other end of the seat was up in years, and she just had a surgery, and she needed a wheelchair. But she says, you know, this is just what I need. I says, no, this is what we all need. What we all need. I says, in that consciousness. And I says, let's move ahead.